You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for August 6th, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we know why Tim Walz will be getting up extra early in every state he and Kamala Harris visit in the next 5 days. You all know the reason. It's to scope out the local farm and home and or Blaine's Farm and Fleet before the day gets too busy. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. Because that's what you do in the Midwest, baby. Get up a half hour early and go looking for that good Carhartt jacket that'll fit you just right when winter comes, because we have winter here in the Midwest.
And you know, in August, you can buy those winter coats on sale over at Menards and Farm and Fleet.
I bet he won't be going to Tractor Supply because they got that bad policy now about...
They got that bad policy about DEI. Yes, they do.
So he's got to say no to that, you know. And they had good jacket sales, but I got to say no to that myself because I can't support people like that. That's why we don't go to Home Depot, do we, honey?
No, we do not go to Home Depot. No. And you know, Menards is owned by a right-wing jagoff also. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway. But yeah, Tim Walz, Midwesterner.
Yeah, boy.
Before we get into all of that, let's just do a quick little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, we need to.
We're recording late.
It's very late in the day for us. The sun is long down. And
we had Driftglass seeing an eye specialist today.
I did. I
Again.
Was.
Another $40 copay.
So
but
doing
worth
this,
it. Worth it.
It was worth it.
Right?
It was worth it to have a spoon jammed in my eye for half an hour and be told, come back in a year, we'll see what's what.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. And so I am doing this with one eye tied behind my back, which is, you know, a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, he had to be dilated and all the other good things they do at the ophthalmologist.
Yes.
But he says that he doesn't need any more freeze rays in his eye.
No, which is very, very good.
And that maybe the floaters will probably go away in 6 months. So
I have one that's parked in the corner called Harry. I call it Harry. It's my little sea urchin friend. And it's just going to be there for a while, and then maybe it'll go away, maybe it won't. But overall, I'm in reasonably good condition.
Yeah. And retina stuff is not something you mess with. So no. The fact that the ophthalmologist said, we've repaired your retina and it's good to go. And now it's just a matter of letting everything get juicy in there and work its magic. You know?
And I forget who it was, the woman who was doing my electrocardiogram.
Oh, yeah.
My echocardiogram. I had to go for that.
All that done too.
And I was fine. But she asked how that all happened. I gave her the long, sad story of the this and the this. Well, what causes that retina thing to tear? I said, getting old.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the goo behind your eye pulls back, and most of the times it detaches right, and sometimes it pulls a little hard. I'm still thinking that I'm the after effects of muscling a 300-pound refrigerator to the curb today.
From 1961, I think it was,
from the 50s.
Or older than that.
From the 50s. This is a Philco. So that thing has been a...
Got that out of the garage.
That's a Tim Wall. I wish Tim had been around to help me with that. Because
he would have had some good advice on how to roll that out there.
Leverage. You got to use leverage.
You got to use your leverage over there. Yeah. But anyway, we have a genuine Midwesterner, Midwest governor.
Yeah.
As vice presidential candidate, and we couldn't be happier.
It's great. It's just great.
Yeah. So we wanted to wait and watch the events of the day before we came on to talk to you, and that was a hell of a Democratic National Convention tonight, wasn't it?
It was. It was a great.
Oh wait, it wasn't. It was just the first rally in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I do love the person who tweeted, "This is the Democrats now," and put up the U.S. synchronized swimming team.
Yeah.
Because it does feel that way. It feels like, okay, we all know what direction we need to go in. Yeah. Everyone is happy, mostly.
Yeah.
And the people who are not happy were not going to be happy no matter what.
No. People who
that's
fine. People who either are bomb-throwing professional right-wing scum or are just shit stirrers because that gets clicks and that gets eyeballs. We're never going to be happy. Any decision would be bad. But I am actually old enough to remember the reaction to Trump announcing J.D. Vance as his vice presidential candidate.
He chose poorly.
This from the New York fucking Times. What a headline. Quote, by choosing Walz, Kamala Harris passed on an opportunity to redefine herself, by Nate Silver.
Nate Silver, because Nate Silver. Oh, God. Really?
So this is Nate Silver is the person to decide how Kamala Harris should redefine or define herself. Is that
exactly. Well, she should smile more, and maybe she's too prepared. I mean, that.
Over-prepared.
Over-prepared. Yes. That over-preparedness, that'll sink you every time. Yeah, it is. I forget who said this on the social media. It was kind of reassuring to know that the New York Times didn't just hate Biden; they hate all the Democrats, and they're gonna find something wrong with all the Democrats, which is why, my mood today is tired and one-eyed and so forth, but it's Zen enthusiasm. It's Zen and enthusiasm. I am very jazzed about our chances in November. They have gotten progressively better over the last couple of weeks. I was ready and willing and happy to ride all the way with Joe Biden. I'm delighted with the Harris rollout. Tim Walz is an awesome pick. And yet it is really important not to forget that there is still wood to be chopped and water to be carried, right?
Yep.
There's stuff to be done. We have now entered basically a British election. There's 90 days. This election is now 90 days and the clock is running. And we have a lot of money and momentum and good people on our side. The party's relatively united. Do not listen to people who are telling you horrible things or talking about communists or about division. Those people do not want us to win. Those people are not your friends.
Yep.
And today, especially today, I mean, for the last 2 weeks, it's been evident, but today, this clearly caught the fascists on their back foot. And they really have no idea what to do other than do what they always do. When they have nothing left to say or do and they have no strategy to go forward, you dig as deep as you can into the slop bucket and you just fling shit everywhere. And all of this is about how Dems could have done so much better, but we blew it. Oh no, you could have had a great candidate, but you blew it, which is a really good barometer about how freaked out they are.
Yep.
How completely freaked out they are. Newt Gingrich is on social media today getting so cozy with the term anti-Semitism, you think he'd plan on dumping his third wife and running away with it. That's how, that's how horny he is for calling Democrats anti-Semites.
The wife of a Jewish man, an anti-Semite.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, Chuck Schumer dunking on Eric Erickson was not on my bingo card anywhere ever. But
what did he do?
When Eric Erickson, who always has a hot take for all of the fans on the right who really need, when Hugh Hewitt's not available to make stupid things that sound plausible with big words they call on Eric Erickson. And he said, well, something to the effect of, well, as you can see, Jews are not welcome at the top of the Democratic Party.
Oh.
And Chuck Schumer piped in with, that's news to me.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Honestly, I haven't cheered for Chuck Schumer.
The minority leader is known to be Jewish.
Yes, the former Senate Majority Leader, and perhaps soon to be Majority Leader.
Senate Majority Leader, yes.
Perhaps again. And I'm not a big Chuck Schumer fan.
Actually, it's Senate Majority Leader. I'm sorry, he is Senate Majority Leader.
Oh yeah, I apologize. You're right.
Yes.
You're right. See, we didn't mean to demote you there, Chuck.
By one vote, yes.
Chuck, you still got the job, and we still appreciate that. And there's a lot of stuff. We get a lot of mail here from Chuck Schumer.
We
my wife
do.
Especially.
We get a lot of what they call the snail mail, the USPS Postal Union's mail. We get that.
It was so bad today that Noah Rothman almost stopped smirking. That's how bad it was.
Such a punchable face. Noah
that man
Rothman
has a permanent jack-o'-lantern smirk on his face. And when that frown goes down, you know that he's very unhappy. Yep. And he wants to give Democrats a lot of advice about how to find those rakes and step on them. And nobody wants to listen to him, which makes him very, very sad. But honestly, the winner today is the biggest loser today. The orange fascist rapist weirdo himself completely lost it on social media. He's looking down the barrel of not just loss, but conviction, prison time, humiliation, the loss of his fortune, the loss of everything. This is the end of every you should never have wished for that thing horror story.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the orange fascist rapist weirdo himself. Quote, what are the chances that crooked Joe Biden, the worst all capitals president in the history of the United States, whose presidency was unconstitutionally stolen, all capitals, from him by Kamala and Barack, misspelled, Hussein Obama, all caps, crazy Nancy Pelosi, shifty Adam Schiff, the guy invents the stupidest nicknames for people and can't stop saying them. Anyway, back to asshole himself. Crying Chuck Schumer and others on the lunatic left crashes, all caps, the Democrat National Convention and tries to take back the nomination, capital N, beginning with the challenging me to another debate, all caps. That was all one long deranged sentence, by the way. He feels that he made a historically tragic mistake by handing over the U.S. presidency, a coup, all caps, to the people in the world, capital W, he most hates, and he wants it back now, all caps, exclamation, 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 unquote. He's lost it. He's lost his fucking mind.
Yeah.
And the one thing, this is what happened. I'll tell you what happened based on not my intimate knowledge of his internals of his campaign, but on human nature. His people told him that running against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, he couldn't lose. It was locked down. He could golf now. All he had to do was keep his fucking mouth shut, pick a lunatic for his vice president who could, at least be presentable in public and make Peter Thiel happy, and then just go golfing. Everything's great. You can take the summer off. You can just have a convention, a rally here and there, have a bunch of morons and racists scream your name, and it'll be fine. And then the Democrats switched up on him. And now he's not able to do that. The strategy of the campaign was clearly to shut him up and tamp him down and release him in tiny doses to friendly media where they could control the message and he could talk about things.
Edit the interview.
Right. Which you notice they edit the shit out of the interview. Every time they talk to him, 2 hours are edited down.
You want to watch how Sparks counts the cuts.
Oh, and
in
you got
those
to wonder
interviews.
what was in between those cuts.
Yeah.
And now he's looking down the barrel of the worst possible future he could possibly imagine, and the end of the grift, the end of the scam, the end of everything. Yeah. And since he on a good day cannot control himself, now he has no reason to control himself. And his campaign staff can't put a leash on that dog and keep it in the cage. So he's running around like a fucking lunatic. And honestly, Democrats could do worse than just run this text as a PSA from now until November, because he's clearly lost his fucking mind. And come November, we're going to know exactly how many people, down to the tens and ones in this country, who are unfit to be adult citizens in our democracy because they voted for this asshole, knowing full well what a monster he is. Anyway.
By the way, Joe Biden is still president of the United States.
Yes, he is. And doing a fine job, I might add. Doing a really good job.
He reminded reporters of that after the hostages that he negotiated to release from Russia came home. And on the tarmac, he said, I'm still president. You've got to put up with me for another 100 days. And he's meeting in the Situation Room, and he's running the country. And what he's not doing is campaigning. Right now, because he's president.
He didn't have to. This is a great deal for everyone, actually.
This is a great deal for everybody. And I had a little pushback today from someone on Twitter about, you didn't feel this way a month ago. Well, it wasn't the New York Times decision that was our argument. It's not the New York Times decision to decide whether Joe Biden drops out or not. It's Joe Biden's decision.
Right.
And it was always Joe Biden's decision, and he made that decision. And we support that decision. But I stand by everything I said before he dropped out.
Yeah.
Because Democrats should not have, especially, I'm not talking about anyone listening to this podcast who does not hold an elected office.
Right.
Everyone's, including my dad, are entitled to their opinion. And I respect you as a fellow Democrat. You're entitled to your opinion. You watch the debate and you're entitled, okay, I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's able. Whatever. You're entitled to that opinion. Absolutely. And I know you would have voted for Biden in November if he was on the ticket against Trump. I know that. Just like my dad. But Driftglass, you and I saw scores of op-eds. It was but her emails all over again at the New York
Times. Absolutely relentless. Yeah, every day. I mean, there were times when there were 3 or 4 or 5 on the front page,
right,
all at once, all at one time. And behind the scenes, there's Schulzberger saying Joe Biden won't give us a sit-down interview.
Yeah,
it was petty. It was petty. It was vindictive, and it was hauling in Hollywood celebrities and Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, and big money donors.
Giving him full page access to the op-ed
influence,
page.
By influence and blackmail people who are elected officials who I did respect, and hope and would vote for again, and so forth. They're fellow Democrats, but being blackmailed by California donors to call publicly for your president to drop out of the race.
Or no more money.
Or no more money. And it's clear you're being blackmailed by big donors. That's what's clear about this. It's just a shame. It's a dirty shame. And it's a black spot on your record.
Yeah.
That happened.
And what happened since then is that Democratic voters, because all the predictions of chaos, we're going to have a speed, and everyone had
an open convention. We're going to have
speed dating convention, and it'll be chaos. And
followed Biden. The base followed Biden.
And it can't be Kamala was the subtext for half these celebrities saying, this is why we need to do things this way as opposed to that way. And the base just, in a matter of minutes, they coalesced around, well, okay, she was the vice president. She was on the ticket. My vote was for both of them. Yep. So, and she seems really competent, ready to go. I trust Joe Biden's
was activated again. Well,
and I trust Joe Biden's judgment. I trust why he selected her or why he selected her a second time.
Yep.
So, okay, fine. Let's go win this thing. No, let's do it a different way.
We need an open convention and no, that's just not the way things are going to go.
Yeah.
And so now we have the synchronized swimming team of the Democratic Party, very much in array.
Yes.
And for this ticket. And I think tonight we saw not only the future president and vice president, but quite possibly the next Attorney General of the United States.
Well, and before we jump ahead with that, I would like to mention one last parting shot at Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah? You mean the part about the hostages?
Yeah. Would you let the people know what Donald Trump had to say about the
hostage release, the largest hostage release prisoner swap with Russia since the Cold War that the Biden administration has been working on for months.
Yep. Behind the scenes. They don't go in the New York Times
while
and show
he had
dick.
COVID,
right.
While the New York Times was piling on him.
Yeah.
He was taking phone calls and making that happen. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump promptly congratulated Vladimir Putin. I can't. By the way, I would like to congratulate Vladimir Putin for having made yet another great deal.
Did you see
Garbage
the deal?
Person.
Did you see the deal we made, Blue Gal? Yeah.
Garbage person.
Yeah.
Garbage person.
That's one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
At the other end of the spectrum, today we saw Josh Shapiro step on
who might be the next Attorney General of the United States, as I said.
Fingers crossed, maybe. Step onto the stage and just kill it. Yep. He killed it. First thing he did was kill any suggestion that there's any division or resentment or rancor among the leaders of the Democratic Party. Absolutely none whatsoever.
Well, what's Chris Cillizza going to write about then?
Well, he'll do what he does. He'll make shit up, and then he'll put it up, and then he'll just move on, because that's what Chris Cillizza does, and that's what a lot of them do.
And Chris Cillizza was the one who said, it's going to be Shapiro. It's going to be Shapiro.
Oh, yeah. He knows that simple declarative wrong sentences is how Chris Cillizza has made a living. Why they pay him for that, I have no fucking idea. But that's a longer podcast for a different day. Today, we saw Josh Shapiro reach into the professional left game bag and come up with a slogan. We remember. He went full no fair remembering shit on the stage in front of a packed house and in front of, I guess, millions of people watching this on television. And he made it very clear, we remember who you are. We remember how badly you fucked this country up. He even did a swear. He said the word shit on stage, knowing it would be in prime time. And then he went to the number 2 slogan, which is not going back. It really is a wonderful, simple, brilliant pairing of we remember the past and we are not going to go back there. It's a horrible place full of terrible people doing shitty things and ripping us off and letting us all die. We're not going back there. We're going forward. And he reminded America and people who have really short memories that, hey, guess who packed the fucking Supreme Court? That guy did. Guess who took women's civil rights away from them? That asshole did. Guess what the Supreme Court did for the guy who he got them their job? They put him above the law. They put him beyond the reach of the law. And he brought up they have a clear plan. That plan is called Project 2025. And he really made the prosecutor's case for destroying the Republican Party and embracing the Harris-Walz ticket as a unity ticket that spans generations. It looks like America. It has respect for all the values that we Democrats have, has great policy ideas, and is fun, is joyful. That's the thing that Tim Walz brought to the table. He brought another word to the table I'm glad he brought there. First of all, it was mind your own damn business. The great search was on for describing how to do pro-abortion, pro-choice language, and it's very simple. Mind your own damn business. You come to the Midwest. We talk this way all the time.
He got very personal, too. His IVF story, the ads write themselves.
Yeah.
He has two children. Tim Walz has 2 children via IVF. And they're great kids.
Yeah.
His daughter's name is Hope. Hope.
And you showed me that video of him.
I showed you a video of them, Hope and Tim Walz doing an ad for Hands Free Minnesota, which is you have to have your hands on the wheel and not on your phone while you drive. It's the law because Tim Walz signed it into law because he wants teenagers to be safe. And his teenage daughter said, no, this is for older people, Dad.
Bald people.
Bald men.
Bald white men. Yeah. And boy, did I get a flashback.
Seriously. Teaching young people to drive?
Teaching young ladies to drive.
Yeah.
And just busting each other's chops and having a good time and really enjoying each other's company while doing something very important, but not doing it with a scoldy, heavy hand because they're bright and intelligent and wonderful people and I enjoy their company. And clearly, daughter loves – this was an ad. This is 100% dad energy coming off of this car. And clearly his kids love him. And, he's got this resume that just has to be driving people crazy. He's a gun owner. He hunts, and he's in favor of Second Amendment modifications and sane gun laws. And he's a football coach.
Background checks, yeah.
He's a 24-year veteran of the Army Reserve. Went to college on the GI Bill. I mean, it goes on and on. It's like, oh God, he was built in a fucking laboratory for this purpose, and everyone could sense that. Everyone in the audience could sense that. Clearly, there was a moment when Kamala Harris looked at him when he was reciting his resume, which for you, if you don't know this, for Midwesterners, it's hard to do. It's hard for us to brag on ourselves.
Hard to brag about ourselves. Yeah.
As he's talking about his resume, she's looking at him like, God damn, did I choose the right guy? Yeah. Way to go, me. Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, well, this shocked me, and I didn't think I could be shocked, but I shouldn't have been shocked. This is one of my bugaboos, as you know, Driftglass.
Early and often.
A colleague known as Scarce at Crooks and Liars brought this to my attention. I couldn't believe it. WinRed. They're still thieving bastards doing crap with, repeating donations.
Yeah.
They're still doing it. And this is according to Andy Hirschfeld at Al Jazeera on July 31st of this year. So just a week ago. It is, quote, an old problem with WinRed, one of the largest Republican PACs in the U.S. Set up in 2019, it has been under the lens of attorneys general across 4 U.S. states since 2021 for overcharging consumers and deceiving them into donating more than they thought by using deceptive marketing practices. According to records obtained by Al Jazeera, the deceptive practices have continued in the lead-up to the U.S. presidential elections in November of this year. Now, this just shows you that the Federal Election Commission needs to be bombed.
Scrapped.
And I mean that figuratively, but just scrap it. Yeah. And get people from, Citizens for Ethics, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington crew. Just get nonpartisan ethics lawyers a team of them together, and that's the FEC. Because having it be 50% Republican, you just get nothing. Republicans just get away with all of it.
You just steal. They'll steal everything that's not nailed down.
Yeah,
and the Republican Party and the Supreme Court will make it all legal if they ever get caught doing something illegal.
And so I just got to tell you guys, do not trust the Trump fundraising numbers.
No,
because they're stealing from their own donors, as they have been since 2019.
Well, since day one, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was day one. Yes, that was day one, because they're charging between 50 and 200 times over and over again every month from seniors who aren't looking at their credit card bills. One guy in this Al Jazeera article had quote unquote donated over $59,000.
I didn't realize it.
WinRed, he authorized WinRed to donate $50 every week. Well, yeah.
Oops.
Anyway,
they're stealing. They're just stealing.
They're just stealing. And I know there are some Democrats say, "Oh, I'm fine with that. Let them steal it all from Republican donors." This weakens our democracy as much as Trump is to let this happen.
Right. Let them spend it on football or their local evangelical, scam.
Right.
But keep it the fuck out of politics. And it's just that.
Elections have consequences, and election funding should be on the up and up.
Yeah.
Regardless of party. And I am very grateful that there are senators. It's actually coming out of committee now, the bill to prevent Congress people from owning individual stocks.
Yeah.
John Ossoff is working on that, and good for him, because his opponents were such insider traders.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that's spearheading this. But Democrats are, I hate to go both sides on our own podcast, but
in this case,
a whole lot of Democrats are making money hand over fist from the market.
Well, and you can't, as with many things, it is really difficult to unilaterally disarm anything.
Right.
Because it has to be off limits for everybody.
Well, and that's why banning members of Congress, period.
Yeah.
From owning individual stocks is the way to go.
Yeah. And speaking of corrupt Republicans and the human beings they own, the funders that run the party and the human beings they have as their personal thralls, this is another week when we found out that Clarence Thomas wasn't 100% honest with us, Blue Gal.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he has been pushed as far as someone who has no accountability to anyone for anything can be pushed. And don't worry, you got it all. Oh, this is all my travel. It was only like several $1 million. It wasn't any more than that. Swear to God, swear on a stack of Bibles, swear on the Constitution, swear on Tony Scalia's grave. Oh my goodness, I forgot one flight there that I went on from Hawaii to New Zealand and back that I never reported on Harlan Crow's private jet. And the only reason we found that was somebody went looking through customs records because it was outside the United States. And oh, look, here's a guy named Clarence something Thomas on a private jet going to New Zealand for a week. So that's how bad things are. That Clarence Thomas is a wholly owned subsidiary of Harlan Crow Enterprises. Now, when did I know for sure that Harlan Crow was dirty and Clarence Thomas was one of his thralls? I will tell you. I can almost the precise moment. It was back 1 year ago when David Brooks personally vouched for the integrity of Harlan Crow. And he used the I, me, my statements, which is very rare, incredibly rare. David Brooks does not like to put his fingerprints on anything. It took an act of Congress for him to admit that his son had enlisted in the Israeli Defense Force.
Yeah.
It took another act of Congress for him to admit that he had gotten a divorce. After writing column after column about why poor people need to stay married. He does not like revealing shit about his personal life. He just wants to stand off in his aloof, kind of above it all, view from nowhere bullshit op-eds that are always very careful to deflect attention away from himself. Now, these are all quotes from David fucking Brooks from an appearance on the PBS NewsHour just 1 year ago. David Brooks. Yes, first I should say I have been friends with Harlan Crow for about 20 years. What? Really?
Wow.
I find him a wonderful man. He's the nicest, kindest, bravest man I've ever known.
Yeah, right.
He hosted me at his home in Dallas and in New York. Oh, really? So viewers should know that that's my connection to Harlan. I think viewers are smart enough to know I'm probably biased in Harlan. I really like Harlan. I think he's a wonderful guy. Cool. This is also David Brooks. As for going forward, I confess I'm a little concerned about Congress doing it and it being, passing minimal ethical standards for the Supreme Court to follow.
Yes.
But he doesn't think Congress should really be doing that, maybe. A, because they're pretty polarized. The Republican Party's corrupt. He can't say that or his tongue would blow up in his head. But that's what he really means. And B, I'm not crazy about their own ethical standards. I mean, they go dialing for dollars and they do a lot of nasty fundraising. It's more polarized. So don't get Congress involved in doing oversight of the courts because that's just crazy, even though for every other court, that's exactly what they do.
Yep.
And even though they don't have fucking lifetime appointments where they can overturn any law they want and go home and sleep at night in a bed made of money. This is also David Brooks. I do think it's, in my opinion, having watched the court, not as a professor, I don't really cover the court too much, but so he knows nothing is what he's saying. He doesn't know shit about anything. But in my view, they don't do quid pro quo. In my view, I haven't met Clarence Thomas and many of the justices, but I have met a bunch. Like who? If you haven't met Clarence Thomas or the other justices, who the fuck have you met? Oh, yeah. Okay. I find them remarkable people, both the ones appointed by Democrats and Republicans, Blue Gal.
Oh, God.
It's both sides. This is also David Brooks. And so I think they've gotten too ideological. But I think the problem here is too ideological, not too corrupt. Jesus Christ. Finally, frankly, I think the public's distrust of the institution is unmerited. We should be suspicious of all concentrated power.
It's everybody's fault.
It's everybody's fault, Blue Gal, except, of course, the New York Times op-ed page.
Him.
Yeah. But I think the courts in general, up and down the system, function reasonably well. And then they took away a woman's right to choose. And then David Brooks got real quiet.
That was a year ago.
Yeah.
That was before Roe fell.
But David Brooks is finally cornered into admitting that he's also very, very, very good friends with a billionaire and has been to his house and hosted him and flown around with him and pals with him. He's a great person, Blue Gal. And the minute Brooks went out of his cage to vouch for him, that's when I knew the guy was dirty and a scumbag. So, great barometer.
Getting back to the Trump campaign and not trusting the fundraising money. And Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, they reported this week that political spending tops $1.8 million at Trump properties this cycle. That's just this quarter.
That's not contributions.
No,
that's
renting. That's renting out, ballrooms and catering at Mar-a-Lago. And I'm old enough to remember that sinking a Senate campaign in New York.
Yep.
When he rented his own properties to his campaign. Yeah. Campaigns and political groups have spent more than $1.8 million at Trump properties so far this election cycle. Donald Trump's political operation, which consists of his campaign, fundraising committees, and super PACs, has driven the bulk of the political spending, paying more than $1.2 million to Trump properties. So he's self-dealing. But it's not just Trump's own political apparatus that's providing the payday. Senate campaigns and the National Republican Senatorial Committee have spent more than $366,000 at Trump properties. That's Mitch McConnell. And House campaigns have spent more than $256,000 at Trump's hotel/residence.
Bribes is what they are.
It's bribes. Or
tributes.
Hush money. Yeah, tributes. Because you got it. It's all one big thing. The WinRed, you got to fundraise through WinRed, or you're out of Trump at Trump World, and you've got to throw your parties and fundraising events at Mar-a-Lago, and everything is designed to keep the emperor wealthy.
Yes.
Getting back to this Crew article, despite the Trump organization's sale of his eponymous D.C. hotel, which he sold, that was the one that he rented entire floors out to the Saudi royal family and they never stayed there.
Oh, yeah, that one.
That one. He sold that when he finally left Washington after he lost, and he did lose the 2020 election. The D.C. hotel served as a hub for Republican political fundraising events during Trump's presidency. Trump's profiteering off of his political operation has not missed a beat this election cycle, and spending is instead focused at Mar-a-Lago, which the New York Times described as the White House in exile and the nerve center for some of the most extreme elements of the party's MAGA wing. Unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still not over white nationalist Nick Fuentes dining with you, Donald.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not going to go into this, but there was that 5-minute period this week when Kyle Rittenhouse said a mean thing about Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And the MAGA machine just threatened to come in and destroy his life. And how fucking dare you? And don't you, Donald Trump gave you your manhood, you little bitch. And that's how they operate. It's a mob operation. How dare you leave the cult? And every now and then you can see someone just try to tiptoe to the door, and that's what happens. And that's how you know it's a fucking cult. Now, some people have escaped the cult. And this is a fine story with a local twist. Among all the usual names that have started Republicans for Kamala Harris, which is a Republicans for Kamala Harris group, is a new one, former Illinois Governor Jim Edgar, who goes to our church. So I'm high-fiving him next time we see him. This is from the Chicago Sun-Times. Quote, Republicans for Kamala Harris launches with Illinois GOPers Edgar, LaHood, Kinzinger, Walsh. Republicans for Harris endorsers also include former Trump White House officials Stephanie Grisham and Olivia Troy, former Obama Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, former Governors Bill Weld of Massachusetts and Christine Todd Whitman of New Jersey, and the latest supporter, Mesa, Arizona Mayor John Giles. Shout out to friend of the pod and friend in real life, Steve, who put us onto this more than a week ago, so that we know that Arizona is bluer than you think. And we talked about that on this podcast. Back to the Sun-Times article, aiming to woo GOP voters who reject Donald Trump. The Kamala Harris campaign on Sunday launched Republicans for Harris, including from Illinois, former Governor Jim Edgar, former Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood, whose son is in Congress and is a MAGA asshole, so go figure that, and ex-reps Adam Kinzinger and Joe Walsh, unquote.
Yeah. We have some union news.
Yeah.
From UAW President Sean Fain, quote, GM workers were on strike for 40 days when Donald Trump was president. Where was Trump then? He did nothing. Kamala Harris was actually out on the picket line before it was a popular thing to do. She stood shoulder to shoulder with striking workers. She had our back. Trump is all talk, unquote. Also from the AFL-CIO, quote, Governor Walz isn't only an ally to labor, he's our union brother.
Yeah.
With a deep commitment to a pro-worker agenda, labor stands united behind the Harris-Walz ticket and ready to help lead the effort to defeat Trump, Vance, and their Project 2025 agenda, unquote. Go unions!
Go unions, man. I that's just warms my heart.
You know what they can do? Get out the vote stuff.
You think so? If they have some sort of organization, national organization, where they can knock doors and get the vote out for people and phone banking?
We didn't put that in this episode, but yes, Laura Trump and the Republican National Committee has decided
that's right.
To
relegate,
outsource and relegate their get out the vote efforts to outside groups.
Yeah, you know,
because it's too much work, quote unquote.
Yeah.
To get out the vote for a national political party.
Yeah.
To get out the vote of their voters.
It's expensive. It's
expensive.
That takes a lot of money away from shit we want to buy here at the headquarters of the.
I keep trying to reinforce this, and I feel like I'm talking to a wall. Some
or
of
walls.
These things,
Walls.
or a Walls. No, I'm not talking to a Walls because Tim Walz definitely knows this. There are certain roles in politics that are simply jobs to do.
Right. That's right.
Being the head of the DNC is a job. It's not a cupcake that you give to somebody you like. You have to give it to someone who knows how to do all of the boring day-to-day shit.
And
it involves knowing where precincts are, and hiring precinct captains, and having the precinct captains organize canvassers. And all of that involves people, and some people are not reliable, and it's drudge work. Some of it is just drudge work. It's not glamorous.
Yep.
And so, Laura Trump, the so-called former president's daughter-in-law, taking on this co-chair responsibility is just a way to make sure all the party money funnels to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she announced, we're not doing get out the vote effort, we're going to leave that to, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Old reliable Charlie.
He doesn't have the data.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't have the staff or the skills to do an actual get out the vote, which is precinct by precinct, sometimes neighborhood by neighborhood. And it's drudge work. It is just boring, and it involves lots of maps and computers. These days it's computers. It used to be just maps, just desktop maps that you would flip over with large piece of paper and dots on them. It's just excruciating. Now it's all computerized. But it's a job. It's work.
It is.
And it's like being an accountant. It's it's not exciting or glamorous, but if you get a decimal point wrong, you can lose an election.
Yeah. This is how Obama did it in 2008.
Yeah, absolutely.
He and his people deeply understood the rules of the
Iowa
primaries
caucuses, especially.
And the caucuses.
Yeah.
And understood exactly how many votes they needed and where they needed to put them. And they were geniuses about these things. They really were. They were great. And this is where, having a community organizing background probably came in handy because you understand what the infrastructure is required to do this. The only thing I can compare it to in my life is once upon a time, about 1,000 years ago, I ran the academic computing department at Columbia College. I wasn't the department head. I was the tech coordinator. I was in charge of all the equipment. I was in charge of all the infrastructure. And in a department that teaches technology, the curriculum is the technology. So I was deeply involved in everything. But my labor force were volunteers. Were student volunteers who sometimes didn't show up on time and sometimes had a fight with their girlfriend or boyfriend. But sometimes they showed up with a cat that they had to take care of that I had to put in my office, and that cat shit all over the place. And that happened to me. Sometimes they got bullied in the labs. Sometimes they were awesome. And they could only work X number of hours a week. So I had to really juggle that with, 40 or 50 of them. Now imagine doing that with 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Many
in
of whom
states.
Many of whom need their hands held all the time.
Right.
Because they're very, very nervous, or they have a lot of money and they require you to constantly run around plugging holes and patching things together for one election. Because you have to redo the whole thing the next time.
Right.
It is a job. It is a dirty, rotten plumber's job.
Yeah.
Your job is to keep the water running and hopefully the toilets don't overflow. And if nothing goes wrong, you're invisible. That means you've done a great job.
Right. Exactly.
And you're the silent service. Now, outside the campaign, I did want to mention something that struck a nerve with me for a variety of reasons. The Pod Save boys are going through some stuff right now.
And we don't talk about other liberal podcasts ever.
No.
But this is national news.
Yeah, it is.
Their laundry has already been hung out, and so we can't leave it alone.
Well, and we talked about automotive YouTubers on this podcast a couple, 3 weeks ago, I think, about an outfit called Donut, which I really enjoyed, and Hoonigan, which is a larger one. And they were both going through the same thing, which was the original, hardworking, focused, crazy, committed people who were focused on cars and put these things together. The real hardcore guys were being edged out because their efforts succeeded. And they got a lot of viewers and they got a lot of clicks and they became very profitable. They never actually owned what they created. They were the creators. They were the people who were there generating content. And then one day they got bought. They got bought by people who didn't let their sort of preferences be known right away. But slowly over time, the people who now owned them started making life unpleasant for them. And started letting them know that the joyful working on a car for 20 hours and then cranking it, through whatever on film and screwing up and having fun wasn't their business anymore. Right. Because that wasn't generating enough clicks and likes. And it was all ad revenue, and ad revenue is what we need. And that is apparently a lot like what's going on in the Pod Save world. And so I'm going to read an article from Bloomberg. This was also reported in Variety. So again, not telling tales out of school. And
right.
the reason I'm mentioning this is because a direct effect on this party and how we do politics and how we succeed and why it is that, frankly, honestly, little Midwestern podcasters like us who are in it for $5 donations just to keep the roof over our heads and have been doing this for far longer than the Pod Save kids have been
14
involved.
years. It'll be 15 years in January. Yeah.
Actually, we are the party. I say on my blog all the time, I am the liberal media, and I mean it. We're the liberal media. And when something this bad happens in public, it makes us all look bad. So I urge you to, think over and influence where you can the way your podcast hosts, your favorite people, even us, behave. And are we acting in the best interest of our policies and our politics and our party? And if we're not, then we've lost the thread and we've gone after something else because, this is, we're not ever going to get rich doing this. But we'd like to be able to keep doing it for as long as we can. So this is from Bloomberg. While Pod Save America tries to unite Democrats, its staff rebels. It's a much longer article. I'm just going to read a few little pieces from it. Some employees feel their progressive ideals aren't reflected in the workplace at one of the most prominent liberal media outlets. As one of the most influential media outlets for Democrats, the liberal podcast Pod Save America is trying to help listeners make sense of the chaotic U.S. presidential election. That's what we do. But at a pivotal moment in American politics, the divisions on display in the Democratic Party are also played out inside the progressive media powerhouse, pitting members of the young, idealistic staff against the more moderate hosts and founders of the parent company, Crooked Media. This is skipping way ahead. After Biden's 2020 win, the company profile kept growing. In March of 2022, Crooked Media signed a distribution and ad sales agreement with SXM Media, an ad sales branch of SiriusXM Holdings Incorporated, worth $150 million over 3 years, according to people familiar with the arrangement. 6 months later, it scored an investment from Soros Fund Management.
They got Soros money.
I was wondering where all the Soros money was going. We found where it's gone. It's gone to the people who already have a shit ton of money, representing the group's first outside financing, which provided the fund founded by billionaire George Soros a seat on the board. So now George Soros has a seat on the board. At the same time, the company appointed its first chief executive officer, Lucinda Treat, formerly the chief legal officer at Vice Media Group, which, as you probably know, has all but collapsed. Its staff had, by that point, grown to 88 employees. We have 2 and some cats who occasionally help us out.
Yes.
Crooked Media was suddenly flush with cash and status. But instead of rallying the crew, the business's high profile within the Democratic Party fractured the group, just as global podcasting industry also began undergoing convulsions of its own. Following years of profligate spending, advertisers started pulling back their budgets, which is why we only have fake sponsors on this show. With fewer ads, one of Treat's first moves as CEO was to cull programs that didn't deliver large audiences. Oh, wow. My goodness.
Yeah.
One of the underperforming shows was Hot Take, hosted by climate essayist Mary Anise Heglar and climate reporter Amy Westervelt. It was canceled in December of 2022. The 2022 producers and a third of Crooked Media's employees have left since January of 2023. For some, the layoffs and perception of a lack of clear career ladder jarred with the big payday the founders received from the Sirius and the Soros Fund deals. Favreau, one of the youngest speechwriters to have worked at the White House, reportedly bought a home for nearly $10 million in Los Angeles in early 2023. Images on social media showed him and his wife schmoozing with celebrities like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. Some of the Crooked Media staff say they resented Favreau's real estate dealings. They interpreted it as a signal of the founders talking like progressives, but enjoying the wealth and the privileged class, particularly during the tough times in the podcast market, according to several staffers. Unquote. There's also apparently something hinky going on with promotions. One of the people that got promoted really fast up through the ranks turned out to be John Lovett's dog walker. who's also who's now in a relationship with him. This is stuff that happens at a lot of companies. Okay,
a lot of companies. Yeah, that's not unique to them or anything like that.
This is a company that is entirely outward facing and based on allegedly progressive politics.
Yeah,
and something is going on inside there that is damaging to the party and the cause. And it is something we can look from afar and shake our heads and go, God damn, this, I don't believe this was ever their plan. I mean, their plan was, because they had a podcast, you might recall, called Keep It at 1600, which was just hanging out and talking to people like Chuck Todd. Good Lord, talking to people like Chuck Todd.
And Barack Obama. I mean, the first guest was Barack Obama. Yeah. That's how they got, their audience went from 0 to 60 in a minute, right?
But people are doing good on this podcast thing. They're making money. They're having fun. So we'll do this.
They raised a lot of money. They raised a lot of money for candidates. They raised a lot of money.
I mean, before that. But it was Keeping It 1600. It was a kind of a staycation before Hillary won and they all got back into the White House.
Oh, yeah.
And then Hillary didn't win. And suddenly they have to turn this into a business. And that's when they started using their Rolodex, which is all legitimate, to create a media corporation. And they did. And they've done a lot of good. But this is the problem. They've lost the sense of mission. They've lost the thread in some cases. And it's embarrassing because it's public. And there are just way too many people popping up like mushrooms on the horizon. I'm including most of the Lincoln Project, pretty much 2/3 of the Bulwark, who just came out of nowhere. Suddenly there's just an infinite amount of money for people who have a very specific political agenda that doesn't necessarily align with the progressive agenda that most Democrats believe in. And I think that if nothing else, there should be a countervailing voice out there who can debate these people on our terms. And that's where Tim Walz makes me so happy, because that is the powerful, rational, avuncular, joyous, Midwest dad voice that we try to put across to you twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week on this podcast. Anyway.
Yeah. And we don't have any Soros money coming in. I don't see that as necessarily a virtue.
No.
But I can see where if you have a staff to pay and you have an obligation to them to provide them with a career ladder and benefits and a stake in the organization.
Right.
And all of a sudden you get an influx of cash that only goes to 3 of you, apparently. It's not, we're all in this together. We're all in this together when we're all eating peanut butter sandwiches as a startup.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's Animal Farm.
Yeah.
And some liberals are more equal than others. Well, that can be. And I'm very hesitant to even air this because we never do this. We never talk about other podcasters in any kind of negative way. I don't.
Well,
and
I do. I talk about
you
the
do.
Bulwark.
Well, you listen to more of them than I do. And one of the reasons I don't listen, I've said this before, but one of the reasons I don't listen to lots of liberal podcasts is I'm terrified that I'll just start quoting other people's podcasts rather than writing my own.
Exactly.
And I want to make sure that mine, at least, I'm sure I'm repeating a lot of things other podcasters say, but it's coming from my brain to you rather than.
That brings us to our today's worst persons in the world countdown. So,
well, there is that one, but I don't, I feel like the copying goes in the other direction. I hear a lot. I hear a lot of what we say.
I do too. And
when
not
you
just
quoted
us.
Shakespeare the day after we did, I was just like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well, let's. I want to be very clear. I am enormously grateful to our audience. Everything we have is thanks to you. Everything we can do is thanks to you.
Everything.
And it is thanks to you. I swear to God that Both Sides Don't has become a mantra. That attacking the both sides thing has become a thing that people
that is you guys spreading the word.
Yeah. And that is
and then bringing it to our attention when somebody says when Joe Rogan says burn the boats.
Yeah.
I'm like,
hey,
oh,
cool.
By the way, you guys, do you have a lawsuit ready for Joe Rogan?
Yeah. Well, and the fact that things that we have talked about on this podcast for going on 15 years now, thanks to repetition, and did I mention repetition by you all, have raised them to the point where serious people in serious places are saying what we've been saying all along.
Yes, right.
Is a tribute to your ability to carry our message, not mine and my wife's, but our team, our
collective
community message out into the world.
Yeah.
And it's and you know what? George Soros is never going to pay for that.
Yeah.
He's never going to write us a check for that. But it's important that we keep doing it. And I wish the Pod Save lads all the luck in the world. I really do. I think it's important to have a liberal media. I would love to see
and
an
they,
actual
and I
liberal
have,
media.
as I said, as the Pod Save America people, they have raised money
they've
to elect
done a lot
Democrats and done a lot of good. So
but
I'm all in favor of that.
They've also done some things I don't approve of. And
now they're a victim of their success. And that is a very sad thing. And, I wish their employees well. I really do.
And if you want to know more about this, just watch any Rod Serling teleplay from the 1950s about the successful young man from New York who goes to Hollywood and becomes corrupted by wealth and power. Because he wrote like 10 of them and won Emmys for at least 3 of them.
Yeah,
anyway,
sure he did.
Moving on.
We got to talk about RFK Jr. for just a second. Everybody knows the story by now, but apparently seeking to blunt the impact of a forthcoming New Yorker article, RFK Jr. released a bizarre video with Roseanne Barr. There's one of his first of many mistakes. Admitting that a decade ago he dumped a dead bear cub in Central Park and staged the scene to look like a bicyclist ran over the animal. Also, there is a genuinely weird photo of RFK Jr. pretending to be bitten by the cub. RFK's fly is down in the photo for some reason. Weird.
And someone has suggested on the social media that from now on, whenever you run into RFK Jr., walk up to him and say, "Tell me about that thing," and just see what he'll confess to spontaneously.
What he'll confess to next.
Yeah, because there's just a lot of weird shit back there, and it is a shame because at the end of what was it, Hair at the Wind, talking about there used to be a giant in that person. There used to that shell of a man used to be something worthwhile. And let's wrap up with talking about Chris Cillizza and Joe Scarborough and Ben Shapiro and J.D. Vance. What do they all have in common, Blue Gal? Guess what they all have in common? They're all very unhappy about Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Thus proving that it definitely was the right choice. You know who likes the choice? AOC, Bernie Sanders, and person nobody asked about any goddamn thing, Joe Manchin. They're all supporting Tim Walz.
Joe Manchin jumping on to say, "My friend Tim Walz." Who asked you?
Yeah. And thank you for listening to this abbreviated show. It's long, but it's not as long as it could be. It's an hour. I know. And it's now like coming up on midnight. We're all very tired. My wife has 4 more hours of work to do. The Midwestification of the Democratic Party continues.
Yes, it does.
We are the Cornfield Resistance, world headquarters, serving you for 14 years and counting. If you're impressed by Tim Walz, there are a lot of Democrats out there like that.
Yeah,
also, don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not a charity. This is our job. If you can spare $5 a month, please spare $5 a month at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. You know the site. Just tell some friends about it.
We're not going to buy a $10 million house with your money.
No.
We're going to pay for Driftglass's eye treatment.
Well, honestly,
and the copay.
I might follow Tim Walz's example and make a trip to Lowe's just to look at stuff. You know how I am. Just to look at stuff. I wonder what I could do with. Do I really need a mason hammer? Do I really need a mason drill? I really don't. Do I really need a miniature jackhammer? Probably not. Anyway, please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to it. If you can get Tim Walz to be on our podcast, we really appreciate that. That'd be great because we're Midwesterners too. And thank you so much for doing that.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this evening?
Well, the Internet Kitties didn't know if you realized that the Walz family has pets and they're all rescue animals.
Yay!
Yay. Oh, and tomorrow I plan to be on Brad show.
The BradCast.
The BradCast with Digby and Desi, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff. And if you want to hear that, that'll be available as well. We'll put up a link when it comes.
Great.
And anyway, thanks. I love you, darling. Thank you for staying up late with me.
I love you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.